not wanting to stay too long in range of the Gaunts, except for some reason that one hedgehog, and there is the blink. They're going to blink around the Shroud Stone, absolutely ignoring the defenses of their opponent and starting to take out. And we do actually have our first true engagement over here between Vectors and all of these dogs. They're going to do... Welcome to Stormgate. I am your host, Korak, and today's map is Titan's Causeway. This is the TANC 15 American semifinals. Start us off in the bottom left-hand corner of the map, wearing the blue robes and the celestial gloves. We have CaptinAlex. His opponent for the moment in the top right-hand corner of the map, wearing the red robes, sporting the infernal gloves. Here is Luolis. Both fighters ready. Begin. We have already started off strong for both players. We have a Morph Core versus a Hexen. I don't get to see this little battle back and forth, but I believe the Morph Core actually loses that. Morph Core is going to turn itself into a Starforge after the Hexen's going to be able to see that, and it looks like CaptinAlex is going to go back to his old strategies of popping down that Starforge in order to get those early Vectors out to start dealing a good chunk of damage. We have our first set of Brutes, or Brute, I should say, out for Luis. He's going to need some of the Gaunts to back that up if he's going to fight some of the Vectors. Those are going to be very important. First Vector is making its way out while the Brute and the Hexen begin to munch on one of the easier camps, munch on the speed tower, which will help them do some minor kiting around. First Vector, like I said, is finally out, and he's going to run into a couple of Gaunts. I do not think he... No, he actually does win this fight. This is a fight he definitely wants to take. He takes a Gaunt, and the Vector is still alive. He's probably going to go find himself a plant to snack on to get some healing. There it is. He does grab the snack, and then he's going to go back in and look for something else to grab and something else to harass, and I'm willing to bet... yep, there we go. There is our second Vector that is joined, and our third one that is currently building. He's doing what he did last time, where he tries to take the health camp over here in order to do these hit and run tactics, and the two Vectors are actually going to find two Gaunts by themselves, but very quickly the units of Luis, I'm sorry, are going to jump in here and pinch in the Vectors. Vectors are going to try to make their way out, but the Fiends with the speed buff are too much to deal with. They do actually make it out just fine and grab a flower for good measure, and this is looking positive for CaptinAlex in this moment. So far, he has not suffered, CaptinAlex has not suffered any losses just yet. It's just been purely the Infernal faction that's been losing forces left and right. There is the third Vector and the fourth one coming on the mini-map, and more forces of Luis just keep dying. He's just sort of throwing his forces into the grinder. None of these... Oh, I guess one of the Vectors was low, but I'm not sure that's worth it. He threw away a lot of units in there. Several Gaunts, a Brute, a Hexen, all while his opponent still has decent health on his Vectors, except for the one over there. We do have a decent Bio Ball starting to build for Luis. Luis is going to try to grab this health tower, but it's not going to be enough because here are so many Vectors to start hitting him in the back. The Brute does get taken out. FUG does come out to help protect these Gaunts. Gaunts do push out some of the Vectors, but it's not going to be enough. The micro is just all over the place with CaptinAlex. CaptinAlex doing a fantastic job microing and not losing a single Vector, while his opponent on the other side continues to take loss after loss. They may actually be able to get a Vector here, no, but they do turn around, and they, for some reason, Luis decides to go for this health tower instead of killing his opponent. He's gonna lose everything for it. Now that's just entirely set up for CaptinAlex to take, and there it is. He's going to grab it and heal up those few Vectors that were starting to hurt. This is looking worse and worse for Luis. He's just Luis. He's just not in a real great spot. He's taken net loss after net loss when it comes to units, and he's not been able to expand. CaptinAlex finding amazing purchase in his vectors, still not taking any losses yet, and killing gaunt after gaunt and unit after unit. And I think this might actually be game here. I'm not sure Luis can do anything about that. And there is the GG. Luis does call in the GG. I cannot pick a name for that player for some reason. I apologize. You'll have to correct me down in the comments of the proper way to pronounce your name. I'm pretty sure it's Luis and not Luis. Either way, CaptinAlex doing an amazing job on the micro in this match. We are moving on to match 2, round 2, between CaptinAlex and Luis. I'll see you there, Commander. You could join us, Commander. This is match 2 of round 2 between Luolis and CaptinAlex. Yes, I did a little bit of research, and by research I mean I plugged his name into multiple TTSs, and so far the best pronunciation I can come up with is Luolis. It's probably also still wrong. You can let me know in the comments. Either way, we are on the map Broken Crown, and if Luolis is not careful, he is going to be in quite a precarious spot. He can get knocked out in the semifinals, which would definitely be devastating for him. He obviously wants to go for gold. He wants to take this series, and I believe there is a cash prize associated with all of the TANC series. I want to say it's pretty significant, like anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000, but I'll have to look that up. I probably should have looked that up before I dove into this, but I was excited to get some Stormgate content, and that's what we are doing right now. CaptinAlex taking a very aggressive Stormforge once again. He found amazing purchase in his vectors early on, and I'm not sure the Morph Core was spotted. We do get a meat farm inside of the base. It looks like Luolis has decided that he is going to be on the aggressive this time around. From what I understand, the meat farm craps out some of these tiny defenders that deal damage to, I think, units that attack them. I don't think they actually deal damage to what are they called, to the buildings themselves. And Luolis is, sorry, not Luolis, CaptinAlex has already started his aggression and is starting to poke at some of these slimes, trying to take the camp away from his opponent. His opponent is down to just this Hexen. One slime is left, and the Hexen is getting chased down and killed. There it goes. One vector able to find amazing purchase once again, and all that's left is this one slime, which means that not only is CaptinAlex going to get a couple of early kills, he's also going to get that health tower that he likes to grab early on, so he can do these drive-by shots. We're getting a early Shroud Stone over here by Luolis. Luolis learning his lesson from last time and wanting to get that up, get the defense ready, because he knows the vectors are going to be on his front doorstep any moment, and that he has to prepare for this fight. He's going a bit more defensive this time around, other than the meat farm inside of his opponent's base. And actually, the Creation Chamber is going to get taken out by these Felhogs. I thought you couldn't control them, but maybe there's something about those guys that I am missing. CaptinAlex continuing doing some scouting, seeing what his opponent is up to, and noticing that his opponent is stuck in his base and not going anywhere. Also seeing that Shroud Stone being built up. He's probably going to run his vectors all the way back to his base and kill these Felhogs, which are being just absolute pests, killing his power bank and a couple other things. No, they don't seem to care. They're just going to keep taking a couple of the towers to get some Luminite and to get that little bit of a speed buff. They do turn around after they're taking the speed buff, and they're going to make their way over to here, but most of the Felhogs are already taken out. They will be able to start taking out this meat farm. There it goes. The meat farm's going to die rather unceremoniously, and we are up to 5 vectors for CaptinAlex. CaptinAlex is definitely going to want to get down to the south as quickly as he can to continue this pressure, continue this harassment, and to hopefully knock, at least for him, hopefully, or him, knock out his opponents. Luolis still very cautious about walking out of his main and natural expansion. Definitely deciding to hold on to his bio ball so he doesn't take all of the losses he did in that previous round. Let's see if this is going to pay off for him. First imp moves forward, probably going to establish the first natural expansion for Luolis. That's not a bad idea. Get that going. Actually, he's decided to patrol back and forth. Maybe he's not ready to build it just yet. Either way, he's getting ready to set that up while CaptinAlex begins to build more and more of his vectors, more and more of his forces. And they're actually going to blink behind the area, but they're blink behind Luolis's base and start attacking the worker line. This is not what Luolis was expecting. And hell, it's not what I was expecting. They're going to go for the meat farm. They're going to disrupt the building and everything like that. And Captain Luolis is just being an absolute pest with these vectors, able to get a good number of disruption. And there's the blink, and they're going to turn around and focus on one of these brutes, taking out, getting a good kill for good measure. And probably this imp, if the imp's not careful, there it goes. No losses have been occurred on CaptinAlex's turn whatsoever. He didn't get a whole bunch of the workers for his opponent, for Luolis. But he did disrupt their line, which is going to cause them even more issues in the long run. And he's going to keep his opponent on his toes, because even having his forces that far out of the base was enough for Captain to sneak in there and get some good kills and get some good destruction where he could. More and more vectors are prepping to make their way out. Actually, no, it looks like the production has stopped. CaptinAlex has decided that, what is it, 7 vectors is enough to get done. Oh, actually, he has a lot more than I thought he did. That's 10 vectors. This is a lot to deal with. I don't think Luolis has an answer for this whatsoever. Even if he fought him in the Shroud Stone, I think these vectors win. There is the blink. They're going to blink around the Shroud Stone, absolutely ignoring the defenses of their opponent and starting to take out the meat farms and the supply and several units for Luolis. Luolis is not in a great spot. He does finally get to take out some of the vectors. The numbers went from 10 to, it looks like, 7, so 3 were taken out, and there is the blink. So he did a little bit better that time around, but he cannot keep a meat farm up to save his life, and he cannot advance to his natural expansion. CaptinAlex right now with the speed is just running circles all over his opponent. We may get another skirmish here in a second, but the movement speed is just too much for these fiends to keep up. There is the FUG, there is the additional HP for these units, and this is actually looking like a little bit better of a fight for Luolis than some of the previous ones he was able to get his hands on. He needs to kill as many of these vectors as possible. There goes 3 so far. He's doing a lot better than he was doing previously, but he is out of gaunts, he is out of forces, except for what he just built, and his opponent is going to continue to rank up and is going to continue to heal using this tower. And there it is. There is the GG. Luolis decides to call in the game, dropping him out of the semifinals, meaning that our first contestant, our first player to move into the grand finals is going to be CaptinAlex. I will see you in match number 3 of the semifinals, Commander. Welcome back, Commander. We are still in the semifinals. This is match number 3 on the map, Secluded Gardens. Starting us off in the bottom left-hand corner of the map, wearing the blue robes in the Vanguard gloves, we have Mixu. His opponent for the moment in the top right-hand corner of the map, wearing the red robes, sporting the Infernal gloves, we have Kel. Both fighters ready? Begin! Mixu has already started his shenanigans with his scout dog, while we get an early Conclave and an early Iron Vault for the Infernal player, for Kel. Kel probably expecting some shenanigans from his opponent, his Vanguard opponent, and that's probably a good bet. He's going to need to get a Bio Ball and some possibly quick moving units as quickly as he can. And it actually looks like Mixu is going to go for some early Trinium, maybe to grab an early upgrade, maybe for his base or something like that. I guess it would be extremely useful to get that upgrade for the dogs that allows them to do 16 additional damage, which I believe you need T2 do in order to grab. Everybody right now is just happy taking some of these camps to get themselves a little bit of Luminite in the bank and a free tower, or relatively free tower. And they're both taking the identical tower on each side, the health tower per player. More and more dogs are building up, as well as the one Lancer for Mixu. He so far is adhering to the strategy he's been using beforehand. The Inferno factions for me kind of blend together after a while, so I don't remember entirely what Kel's strategy was with his Inferno faction, if he was just outnumbering them with pure blob power, or what the deal was with Kel and his previous opponents. Either way, it will be interesting to see what he can get done against a Vanguard faction, what he can get done against the literal dogs of his opponent. Both players have decided to grab vision towers on pretty identical sides, or pretty identical times. Looks like Kel is just a tiny bit behind his opponent, which is going to make a difference in the interim, which is going to make a difference in the long run for sure, but not anything real crazy just yet. Still continuing to grab these towers. Now everybody's moved on to their energy towers and starting to grab that. I don't think anybody's made any losses yet as far as the forces are concerned. I guess probably a brute was taken down in order to get some of these fiends out, but that's not a big deal. That's kind of their whole purpose. We do actually get some good scouting over here by this fiend from Kel. I'm always happy to see that. I don't think people in this game scout enough, but maybe it doesn't matter. I was listening to someone else that was telling me, a buddy of mine, that he said that even if he did some scouting, I know this is probably different with these higher level players, with these significantly higher level players, but like a lot of people, even if they do some scouting, they may not necessarily know what kind of build does what, since a lot of these players pick a specialization. Like they'll pick Infernals or Vanguards, and they'll just play them to death until they understand them, until they have builds ready to go that they are satisfied with. Bioball is developing quite nicely for Kel, but he still has to deal with these dogs and the transition into hedgehogs. So it's going to be hedgehogs and dogs once again for Mixu. He's going to start the chitin. He's going to start an engagement here and try to take out a couple of these fiends. He may get lucky here in a moment, and there are a couple of dogs there for the reinforcements. This is a bunch of dogs that is going to be able to change the fight just a little bit. Those dogs need to try to get to the gaunts. Those are going to be the main thing they have to deal with, but they are deciding to micro out and let the hedgehogs do the damage and the dogs be the distraction. Dogs are running around, possibly looking to get a pincer. Nope, they decided to go heal in the bottom right-hand corner while the rest of the forces continue to fight. If Kel's not careful here, he may get sandwiched by the three dogs that are sort of just waiting over here, and I think that is Mixu's entire plan, is he wants to sandwich the forces here, but he's not ready for it. He's actually going to try to run his dogs past them. No, he's going to bully a brute to death, actually body blocking him and pushing him into the trees. I wasn't even aware that level of physics was in the game. That's very interesting to see. I don't know if that was just a coincidence, or if that's actually how this game works, if you can actually push your opponent's units around depending on what they are. That's one of those things, like I said, someone else will have to let me know in the comments if that's something you could actually do. If so, that'll add some interesting gameplay to this game. I don't know too many other RTSs that allow you to do that. I know body blocking is definitely a thing, but I don't believe pushing units, except for like the Magmadons in this game. I don't think there's too many other units that do that. And unfortunately, Lancer for Mixu is going to get caught in a unfortunate position, but he might actually have the speed to get away. These gaunts are moving forward, but I'm not sure this is where they want to be. These hedgehogs could take them out rather handedly, but I don't think Mixu realizes that those gaunts were sort of easy pickings for him, or maybe he just wants to gather up his forces. I think he lost a good chunk of dogs. I'm not sure if he cares too much, since he has his hedgehogs, which seem to be his primary source of damage. I am happy to see them fulfilling a role, because I thought they took a really bad nerf in one of the patches and I wasn't able to see them as much, but Mixu is proving that they are still very powerful. And we get another engagement over here. These fiends just not able to keep up with the hedgehogs of Mixu. Mixu continuing to do these feigning retreats as he fires and backs up. Sort of the same strategy with the Exos, but the Hedgehogs are obviously a bit faster than the Exos, and I want to say that they outrange the Exos as well. Another engagement is going to start, and one of the brutes is going to get taken down rather unceremoniously, and this looks to be one of the bigger engagements. Kel fully committed to this fight. He is in here. He cannot go anywhere else, and the bombs are actually going to get a bit of a buff and move into the gaunts. Mixu not wanting to stay too long in range of the gaunts, except for some reason that one hedgehog, and the forces of Kel are going to slowly get whittled down over time. He lost the majority of the brutes, and all that's left are these gaunts, but these gaunts can still make an account for themselves. They can still do a good amount of damage, but the micro for Mixu is absolutely on top of it. He still hasn't lost a crazy amount of units. He has lost 2 Lancers so far, but I think that is okay. His hedgehogs, his primary source of damage, have been able to do it. There is the effigy for the gaunts to give them that additional temporary HP, and I'm not sure it's gonna matter. The hedgehogs are getting drive-by repairs from the repair-o-matics over here. One does get caught in a bad location, but it's not enough to take it out. More and more gaunts keep getting whittled down, keep getting taken down. The Inferno faction is just not doing super great against all of these hedgehogs. Kel has lost a lot of forces in that set of skirmishes. He's going to need some more time to build up a bio ball, but that also means that he's going to be a little bit behind on the economy. Players switching back into grabbing the towers, getting a little bit of Luminite, and biding their time until they're ready to make another assault. Right now, the forces for Kel are looking pretty anemic after those skirmishes, after that all in. And I really wish I could see a total amount of Luminite gathered instead of just what they currently have in their bank. Kel's numbers do seem to be popping up much quicker than Mixu, but that's hard for me to tell. I don't have a way to quantify that, so it's just my best guess from what I've seen. First set of Vulcans are out for Mixu, sort of completing the other part of his build, giving him that little bit of extra damage, and I'm willing to bet we're going to see some Magmadons from his opponent, from Kel, here in a little bit. But so far, nothing yet. Kel has been focusing on his economy and moving down into that second natural expansion. He is still getting picked on by the hedgehogs, but the brute manages to make it out just fine. And it looks like we actually have weavers instead of the what are they called? Instead of the Magmadons. I don't know if the weavers can grab hedgehogs. I feel like they can only grab light units. I guess the hedgehog is a light mech. And I'm not sure if they can grab it. I don't know what role weavers are supposed to play in this game, as far as I know, because from what I understand, they grab the units and pull them back. And the bio ball for Kel is going to take a whole bunch of damage from the kiting of Mixu. Mixu just doing a whole lot and not losing much for it, finding a great purchase in these hedgehogs. Hedgehogs moving around the northern side of the map, and oh no, unfortunately this Vulcan gets caught in an unfortunate spot, and it looks like the Weavers actually can grab the Vulcan. They managed to finish it off and kill it, but they need to go back home just as soon as they possibly can, because the Hedgehogs are inside the base of Kel. Kel is able to push him out, but Mixu is able to get a good chunk of kills for free. I think one hedgehog did finally get taken out, but it's not really worth the cost of all these gaunts and the Shroud Stone. And I'm also sort of curious of what the range on that pull ability by the Weaver is. I'm really excited to see more and more plays with the Weaver. I don't know if they're particularly weak or not, or if they're just expensive, or they're just kind of mid. I don't get to see them a whole bunch, and I think they're probably my favorite model in the game. They just look absolutely wonderful. It's just a haunting creature to look at. And the role they play, I think, will actually end up with some really interesting micro in the midst of all of this, because it'll add one more element that you will have to play with. Secondary natural expansion is developing very nicely for both players. And I'm not sure what the hedgehogs are looking for. They can't quite go around unless the Vulcan can start taking out these trees, and that's exactly what's going to happen. Vulcan is going to dash through the trees, exposing the natural expansion of Kel. Kel's secondary natural expansion is in danger of being lost. There are still a lot of Gaunts here set up, but disrupting that economy is going to make a massive difference. One of the Vulcans gets pulled in by a Weaver and is in an unfortunate spot. Kel needs to take him out as quickly as possible. Another Vulcan is up here in the front, but his goal is to soak up some of the damage so these hedgehogs can continue to do more and more damage. But it does not look like Mixu can keep Vulcans up. These Weavers doing an amazing job of pulling them over and allowing the Gaunts to pick them off. But they're every time one goes down, two more come back in their place, like right now. Another Vulcan does get pulled over by the Weavers, and the Weavers start taking them out as quickly as they possibly can. But still, every time a Vulcan goes down, another one comes back immediately, and Kel is running out of Weavers, running out of forces. There is the FUG, but I think it's going to be too little, too late. Kel is going to lose another large army over here in this engagement, and I'm not sure he can afford to bounce back. I don't know what the plan is, because Mixu is at his gate, at his front door, and ready to kick in the door and start taking out this natural expansion. Shroudstone gets down as quickly as it is applied, and a couple of the Weavers are starting to finally take some damage. Weaver's going to do a very good job of grabbing another Vulcan and taking it out. That is one thing Kel has been absolutely on top of, is every time one of those Vulcans shows up, it uses the Weavers to murder it, but I'm not sure it's going to matter if everything else is dead. And there goes another Weaver, and it's just one Weaver and a handful of Gaunts left for Kel. He is just bleeding forces left and right, and the whole time he's been having a harder time to continue harvesting this shrine, continue harvesting that Luminite, and it's not over. Mixu is constantly looking for an opening, for an opportunity to deal more and more damage to his opponent, and his opponent Kel is looking for more opportunities to grab these Vulcans with Weavers and begin to snack on them. Every time these Gaunts go down, more seem to replace it, but it looks like the forces of Mixu are replenishing much quicker. Vulcans are grabbed by Weavers left and right, but I'm not sure it matters because there are still plenty of Vulcans left and not enough Weavers to continue this assault. Kel is just absolutely bleeding forces, bleeding infrastructure. He continues to build more and more and is not giving up and is putting up a pretty large fight, but I'm not sure how much that will matter. A lot of these hedgehogs still have not been taken out, and they're starting to build up some ranks. I say that, and there goes one hedgehog, and there goes another Vulcan. Vulcans are moving in time and time again, killing these Weavers. The Medtechs are here, but I don't know what the Medtechs can heal everything entirely, but there it is. Kel sees the writing on the wall and decides to call the GG, giving this first round to Mixu. I will see you in match 4, round 2. Here we are in match 4, round 2, between Kel in the blue now, sticking to the Infernal factions, and Mixu now in the red, sticking to the Vanguard faction. Not sure if I mentioned it before, but we are in Isles of Dread. And if Kel is not careful here, he's going to get knocked out of the semifinals and not be allowed to make it to the grand finals. He has come a long way, so they would definitely sting to lose here. He's probably going to try everything he possibly can to make sure that he stays in this game, but he's got to have some sort of winning combination against the dogs, against the hedgehogs and the Vulcans of his opponent, of Mixu. Mixu doing a very good job with his current build of going into these hedgehogs and getting a large number of kills. His micro was very good in the last round, and you know, even in the previous rounds he's been doing very good with this build overall, finding an amazing purchase with his hedgehogs. I'm not entirely sure what the answer for dealing with those hedgehogs is supposed to be for the Infernal faction. Those Weavers did seem to do a very good job of taking out and isolating the Vulcans, so that does seem to be one part of the equation for Kel, but keeping up with those hedgehogs is going to be tough. So I don't know if he needs to do something like grab some T3s and move in what do they call the dragons to start taking out the hedgehogs, but the hedgehogs can just go into their deployment mode and shoot the dragons out of the sky. I guess the other option could be using the Weavers to grab the hedgehogs, but we didn't see that really happening too much at all from Kel's side of the field. Other than that, all I can really think of is Kel grabbing something with speed, maybe grabbing those Magmadons. So maybe he does like Magmadons and Gaunts to fight the hedgehogs and Vulcans of his opponents, to fight the hedgehogs and Vulcans of Mixu. Everyone is just spending some time grabbing some economy, grabbing some Luminite, as well as some towers, and ranking up their units from there. We still have the early opener of dogs from Mixu over here. That seems to be a strong an opener for the Vanguard faction overall. The dogs are very, very good early on, and I've seen people who just hold on to the dogs the entire time. I don't think Mixu is going to do that here. He's going to need some stronger forces, and he's going to need a stronger strategy in general just to fight Kel. Kel seems to have been holding his own a little bit in that last one, but Mixu just doing a little bit of a better job with his build, with his harassment and everything else, whittling down his opponent over time. But Kel seems to have fared a bit better than the other opponents against Mixu in the TANC 15 American edition. We are getting a minor amount of scouting over here by Mixu. Nobody really knows where they're at. Isles of Dread is one of those maps that's a little more spread out. It does have larger choke points for larger armies, which I feel favors the Infernals just a little bit better. Either way, we'll get to see how everything unfolds, and we're getting our first engagement right now. We've got some Fiends running in to try and take the camp from Mixu, and that's actually what they're going to do. They're going to grab the Luminite Tower, and I'm not sure if they were able to get that camp there at the end. If Mixu's not careful, though, he might lose an early Hedgehog, but he is going to continue with the microing, and he's actually not done. He's angling to try and get more shots off on Kel to get everything that he can and whenever he can. And he actually missed micros the Hedgehog just a little bit. He stayed there just a little bit longer than he needed to, and a Brute was able to get a smack on it. Not that it's going to matter too much, because it only did a minute amount of damage. It only did, like, I want to say 60 damage. It's at 150, so maybe my math is really bad. Hedgehog's still sort of positioning their way around. Actually, looks like he's at 134, but Mixu not wanting to make any engagements. He's just satisfied with regrouping his forces and starting his scouting with his dogs. No scouting yet from Kel on his front, at least not into the base of Mixu, but I think he already knows what strategy he's going to do, and this Brute's just going to take so many shots to the back. They do try to turn right there at the end, but they're just not able to keep up with the micro and the speed of the Hedgehogs. Hedgehog's moving forward to take out more of these Fiends to whittle down the forces of his opponent, even more getting ready for that big grandiose fight towards the end as more and more dogs, more and more reinforcements start to join this large bio ball for the Vanguard faction. Once again, Kel is on the defensive as Mixu moves into his territory and begins to whittle him down piece by piece, moment after moment, killing more and more forces, more Brutes being taken out, more Fiends being taken out, and none of the Hedgehogs are in any real danger just yet. And the majority of the forces of Kel not only have been whittled down, but have been killed almost outright and completely. However, Mixu, not wanting to continue this assault, is backing his Hedgehogs off, backing his Lancers off, and possibly looking to go lick his wounds and do a bit of healing. He did still come out on top of that engagement, but the Infernal faction is very good at sort of recouping those losses from what I've seen from losing those number of forces. I'm guessing their units are probably cheaper. A lot of people draw parallels to them and the Zerg, so that would make a lot of sense that they can sort of Zerg out a good chunk of units compared to some of the other factions. The Vanguard, definitely being the Terran equivalent, seems to go for quality a little bit more over quantity, or maybe they are sort of the baseline for the game, which would make sense because their build setup is very basic. Their buildings are, for the most part, are very basic. I don't mean that like there can't be complexity in what they do. I just mean that they are one of the more approachable factions, especially for a new player. Not that that matters too much for these higher skill level players. These players could probably do good with any faction, and they probably just pick someone based off of preference and based off of what they play in StarCraft and other games, and they're probably going to stick to that and just be the best at that faction. It would be nice to see some of these players play sort of off their faction. Like if we start getting show matches in the game, if we can get some of these top level players just sort of playing, you know, it's like kind of like throwing with your left hand, play their off factions and just see how they do. I'm sure they'll do well. It'll just be interesting to see them not do their main factions all the time. Good number of rockets from the Hedgehogs are going to take out a whole bunch of the Gaunts, but it does not look like Mixu wants a prolonged fight here. He's going to back his way up, pop into siege mode to kill that skull and do a fighting retreat over here, not wanting to fully commit to this. Probably going to try to grab this tower here for a second and repair himself, but I guess he doesn't know where Kel is. He can see that Kel did grab the Luminite tower over there in the center, and it actually looks like Kel is actually the owner of both Luminite towers. That's going to be great for his economy, and that seems to be what he's leaning into a bit harder. I'm really curious to see if we're going to get a fourth base from either of these players. Like I said, I was watching Pig's cast, and I don't know if it was map or faction specific, but he was making the comment that once you have that fourth base, it becomes much harder to defend, which makes sense because you have more territory to defend. We have our first set of Weavers out here for Kel. I'm not sure if we have... Nope, there it is. I take it back. There is the Vulcan right on cue. But there are still no Magmadons or much of anything else to deal with the Hedgehogs. I don't know if Kel has an answer yet to the Hedgehogs, unless he's just hoping he can win with Gaunts, but I feel like that is a bit of a stretch. Not that it's impossible, but the Hedgehogs are just so good at doing these hit-and-run tactics. I guess if he gets enough Gaunts and enough hits off, and he can get some concaves off where he wants, he can definitely win that, and even more so if he can just catch or pin down Mixu, he can start picking his forces apart. But Mixu is not making that easy. Mixu is not wanting to be tied down whatsoever in any of these fights. More and more Bio Ball is being added to the mass over here for the Infernals. It's looking like quite a hefty amount. Still, nope, there he is. Every time I go to say it, someone makes me a liar. There are two Magmadons here, hopefully to try and deal with the Hedgehogs. They have that trample ability, which, you know, they trample on top of a particular unit, stunning it for X amount of seconds. The key thing being if they can actually get close enough to the Hedgehogs in order to grab in order to get that CC off. That seems to be the biggest caveat for the Magmadons. So maybe it's a good idea to hold them in reserve where they can. Everybody is sort of positioning for a fight right now. It looks like Kel has decided to grab the HP tower in anticipation for this fight, and the Vulcans are going to clear away a couple of their trees with their dash ability, maybe hoping that they could have gone all the way through, but that does not appear to be the case. Instead, they're going for this Trinium tower to continue more and more of the Vulcans being built up. Same thing on Kel's front. Kel is building a massive, absolute, crazy amount of units getting ready for this fight, and it's awesome to see this many Weavers forming. Here we go. This might be our first big engagement, but no, Mixu does not want to take the fight. He's probably worried about getting pinched. He is going to start taking some chomps on a couple of the Fiends where he can, but that's really about it. Dogs running around to the left-hand side, splitting off from the main force, maybe trying to grab some stragglers. Words are hard. And maybe just trying to do some scouting. I'm unsure right now, but everybody is positioning for a massive fight. One Gaunt moves forward, probably a misclick. Maybe he was looking to do a bit of baiting, but he lost that unit rather early. And the second Magmadon, which is only one of two, is already almost dead before this engagement has even started. And we do grab one of the Weavers does grab a Lancer, unfortunately, and they also decide to grab a Vulcan and a Hedgehog, starting the engagement. Here we go, one Weaver going down. This is mass pandemonium, and it actually looks like Mixu may be losing this fight. There are a whole bunch of Weavers here to soak up the damage and not much to deal with the Gaunts, and a whole bunch of the forces for Mixu actually got isolated in a not super great spot two more Vulcans are going to get grabbed by the Weavers and taken down rather quickly. It looks like Kel has found a solution to Mixu's build. Getting these Magmadons, getting these Weavers have been working really great for him. The whole thing will be if he can keep up this assault, if he can keep up this engagement, and he is starting to lose forces. He's starting to lose this engagement a little bit. Another Weaver does get taken down. Sure, one does replace it, but losing every single one of those Weavers is going to hurt, and the forces for Kel are actually a little bit split up here. I don't know what's happening. These Weavers are off by themselves. Two have been taken down for almost no effect whatsoever. There goes three down, and a fifth one is CC'd while the fourth one goes down, and Kel went from looking really great to looking very anemic in this fight. Mixu losing that first little part of the engagement, but coming out strong in the second part of the engagement. I'm not sure how Kel's going to be able to come back from this. This is a lot of forces inside his natural expansion. Even if he eventually pushes out his opponent, he's still going to lose a lot of infrastructure, a lot of units, and that's continuing. Gaunt after Gaunt is dying for Kel. Kel is just in a not super great spot. The worker line is being taken out, and there is the GG. There is match number 4, round 2. Victory going to Mixu. Mixu is our next opponent. There it is, Commander. Mixu is going to move into the grand finals to face CaptinAlex. They are coming right up. I will see you soon. I'm glad you could join us, Commander, because we are now in the grand finals of the TANC 15 American Cup. We are now in round 1. Starting us off in the bottom left-hand corner of the map, wearing the blue robes and the Vanguard gloves, we have Mixu. His opponent for the moment in the top right-hand side of the map, wearing the red robe, sporting the celestial gloves, we have CaptinAlex. Both fighters ready? Begin! Isles of Dread. This is our first round in this best of 5 series between Mixu and CaptinAlex, and we are already seeing peak Stormgate content here with a Morph Core taking some bites out of a scout over here. It looks like CaptinAlex has been paying attention to Mixu's plays and has decided that he is going to be just as annoying as his opponent. Dog is just being a pest, annoying the crap out of this Morph Core, delaying it from making its expansion as long as it possibly can. And then right before it dies, it grabs the plant and grabs the Shadow Mastiffs trying to hide behind the Starforge. It's not going to be enough to take out the Starforge, which means that we're going to get some vectors out here for CaptinAlex. Mixu's main base is developing nicely. I am super ecstatic to see how this is going to play out between the hedgehogs, the dogs, and the Vulcans of Mixu, and the vectors, the early on vectors of CaptinAlex. It doesn't look like CaptinAlex has decided to test the waters with Mixu just yet. I feel like he can get some done, but he's probably waiting on that additional vector to give himself that just a little bit more extra oomph. And if he can grab this speed tower, he can start all of his reinforcements with a speed buff moving further down in the map. Since this is a bit of a larger map, that speed buff is going to come in real handy. Dogs moving into the healing tower of their opponents over on their side of the map, starting to take out the slimes, while the vectors start to take out the shadow demons for the vision tower over on the right, the bottom right hand side. Well, bottom right hand side of this upper section. One vector is going to have to bounce out. He took just a little bit too much damage from the Shadow Demon. Is probably looking for one of the flowers there. He's going to grab it, and he's going to make his way back to his compatriots, and they're going to continue their advancement on top of Mixu. I'm very curious to see how this plays out, because Mixu's build so far seems to be a later game build, something that sort of grows exponentially and then is very hard to deal with, while CaptinAlex on the other side is very much wanting to get as many of these vectors as he can in the game as early as he can. If this makes it into late game, I think the favor so far is in Mixu's side of the court. But that doesn't mean that Mixu is going to fall apart completely. However, we haven't seen him see a whole bunch of harassment, especially the level of harassment that CaptinAlex can deal for himself. Bob's gonna pop in the Sentry, making a Repair-O-Matic in order to heal up some of these units, and Mixu is looking for, I'm sorry, not Mixu, CaptinAlex is looking for something that he can chew on. He's deciding to go for this Solar Habitat, and he actually gets it even with all of the Bobs here, but the dogs are gonna start chewing on him. There is the first blink of all of these units as they continue to back up and count, and for the first time in this TANC, it looks like Mixu is getting out-kited. That's not something we normally see, so this is exciting on our side of the map. More and more dogs falling left and right. However, there's just as many to replace them. And another new part over here for CaptinAlex is that he's losing vectors much earlier than he is used to. Both players experiencing different things this time around for their opponents, and that's going to happen when you hit these grand finals. Both these players are extremely close to that prize money. They can almost taste it, so they're going to pull out all of the stops in this best of 5 to get it. And we're going to see the better gameplay for it. We're going to see the better matches for it. Only 2 of these vectors are left. Mixu still doing a very good job with his micro. Actually, one of the dogs, I did see the shot follow. 2 dogs go down. The third one here in a second. There is the blink. 1 vector getting taken out. Neither player is finding a massive advantage in either one of these fights. Sure, Alex has lost a good chunk of these vectors, but his opponent has lost a large number of dogs. Not the dogs are particularly expensive, but not having those early on and losing a good chunk of them is going to delay Mixu just a little bit. But Mixu is biding his time until he can get his hedgehogs out and start dealing with that. I think the vectors are still faster than the hedgehogs. So the longer this goes, the more CaptinAlex is going to have to mix up his build. Maybe grab something else. Maybe grab some Archangels. Archangels would be good at stopping the Hedgehogs if they can get the jump in before the Hedgehogs deploy and start their aerial assault. But we're going to see what CaptinAlex decides to implement. Both players grabbing their respective Luminite towers, killing them pretty close to the same time. Dogs on one side, vectors on another, wrapping up these kills over here. But the vectors actually are going to back off and get a tiny amount of healing, while the dogs maybe do the same. Nope, dogs are not going to do the same. That Morph Core for CaptinAlex is just going to sit there on top of that area, not necessarily trying to maintain it, but trying to stop his opponents from healing over there. Dogs are finally going to scout the vectors over here as they move south, and it looks like Mixu has decided to mix it up this time around, and he's going a little bit more aggressive with his dogs than we normally get to see him do early on. Vectors wrapping up their kill, getting their Luminite tower, and they're going to have to do something about the dogs over here because they can take out the Starforge over time, but it does not look like they want to take that fight. CaptinAlex moving into the healing tower in order to get just that little bit of extra buff. Will that make a difference here? It remains to be seen. Dog after dog gets taken down, but so do the vectors. Neither player really having a massive advantage, but it does look like Mixu did come out on top of that skirmish. There is the transition. It looks like we're going to get Curie on top of the vectors. I still think that there is something else that's CaptinAlex needs to go into other than just Curia. I feel like those Archangels might be rather useful if he can get that far, because those Hedgehogs can be very, very difficult to pin down. Kiri's going to move forward and start chewing on some of the dogs. However, they are these lighter units, and as soon as the dogs get that upgrade, they're going to be able to do extra damage. And there it is. Actually, they already have the upgrade to kill the Curies early on. They do an additional 16 damage to the Curies, and that doesn't sound like a lot, but that stacks up rather quickly. Curies providing a front line for CaptinAlex, giving him a little bit more time to kite and kill a couple more of these units. However, he is still in danger of losing vectors left and right. One Curie who was caught off by himself is going to get taken out, and CaptinAlex is trying the best he can in order to save this remaining vector. He's going to float around looking for something to snack on while he's having his opponents on his heel in hot pursuit. There he is going to find the flower that he needs. He's going to get the blink forward and move there, but there is the Vulcan. He is absolutely isolated, and this poor little Vector has tried everything it possibly can, and it still got taken out. And if this other Vector and 2 Curies are not careful for CaptinAlex, they're going to get taken out as well. Vulcan is by itself, but there's not much that can threaten it on the field for the moment, and there is our first set of Hedgehogs. Mixu's forces are building more and more, while the forces of CaptinAlex have been a little anemic. They're very split up. Granted, they're very, very fast moving, but there's only so much they're going to be able to do in that. Morph Core is finally going to get pressured out of the center over here, pressured out of that objective over there. And it looks like we're actually going to get some... No, that's actually a fight against the Hedgehog. One Hedgehog does get taken down. That's good for those Vectors, but the Vector's also going to get taken down just as quickly. Kiri's going to move forward, trying to body block a good number of these dogs so these Vectors can continue to kite and deal damage. 2 Kiris get taken out and explode, dealing damage to next to nothing. And there it is. There's the GG. It looks like CaptinAlex has already thrown in the towel and given this first round to Mixu. Just saying that I'm not able to find the purchase that I want, saying that I'm not able to get the kills that I want, and I keep losing force after force. I need to try a different build. Either way, that is the first round. I will see you in round number 2, Commander. Welcome to round 2, Commander. Last round, it looks like Mixu was able to get the first point, bringing our score to 1-0. This time we have CaptinAlex in the blue maintaining his Celestial, and we have Mixu now in the red maintaining his Vanguard. Morph Core is out and already making its way to a location. This is a bit of a smaller map, which means the rush tactics for CaptinAlex will have better time to work this time around if that's what he decides to grab, if that's what he decides to engage. But Mixu is up to his original shenanigans and going for some annoyance tactics by actually attacking these oozes, forcing some early damage on the Morph Core. Morph Core is going to do little tiny bits of damage to the Scout, but for the most part it's going to try to ignore it. And actually the Morph Core is going to move into the secondary, move into the secondary natural expansion for his opponent. There is the Starforge already set up on his opponent's side of the map, and it looks like he's going to hit it with a 1-click that I missed. I missed what the name of that ability is. But we're going to get our first Vectors out here very, very soon, and they're going to try to steal away this health tower from Mixu, which is still so far part of the playbook that we've seen from CaptinAlex. CaptinAlex very, very liking to grab this health tower, moving from this Starforge, grabbing this health tower, and then just continue to harass. And if Mixu's not careful, he might actually lose this slime to Mixu, and Mixu is CaptinAlex is floating around trying to get that hit, but he's not able to get it quite where he wants it. The dogs are going to do a very good job of kiting and getting some additional shots on CaptinAlex, but not enough to write home about. Ultimately, Mixu is going to have to back out and succeed that to his opponent. I'm still unaware of if you get the Luminite for killing the camps or if you get the Luminite for taking the tower. Blink forward does happen from the 2 Vectors over here trying to get a couple of the dogs, but only able to get 1, maybe 2 shots off from the Vectors. Vector's going to move in and maybe start to pick on some of the bobs of his opponents. At the very least, getting that scouting information will be useful. There is the 1-click, the boosted ability, the overcharge for the bobs, and they're already starting to repair the habitat, not wanting to lose that early on. And actually, this Vector is stuck in a bad spot, but I guess these bobs aren't going to do a crazy amount of damage to them. That Vector is going to back its way out while these others are stuck here, and if they're not careful, they're going to get taken out by the bobs over here. I believe they have a blink, but these dogs are just absolutely on top of them. And there he goes. The blink actually saves that Vector. 2 blinks actually save it, and they take out a dog on their way out, adding insult to injury. CaptinAlex doing very, very good on the micro. It looks like he is on the same level of Mixu when it comes to these back and forward, when it comes to these exchanges. He's doing very, very good. He's definitely doing much better than he was the last time around against Mixu. If he can win the game early, and you know, I think these smaller maps favor his tactics a bit better. There's another overcharge for the Bobs, giving them just a little bit more armor and the build speed. Not that the build speed is going to matter too much. They ultimately do force the Vectors to break their way out. The Vector's not able to find any of the kills that they want, so they've decided to go for the camps of their opponent, go for the vision tower of their opponent, while they wait, grab a little bit of Luminite and help them build more Vectors, help them build more EXP, plus the vision from, you know, that vision tower. And it looks like Mixu's actually doing a bit of scouting with his Lancer instead, poking around to see where his opponent might be over here in the south. Not really able to find anything that he wants too much. Lancer's gonna get caught out in a bad spot here. If the Vectors do see him, they're gonna take him out. He does get the flower right before that, but it's not gonna matter. He's gonna get taken out by all of these Vectors. A handful of dogs are moving towards the southern part of the map to retake their tower and maybe do some damage to this Starforge. The Vector numbers continue to grow more and more. Mixu not taking out, I don't think any of the Vectors just yet. I think everything that's here has stayed here. Yeah, that does appear to be the case. We're on our 7th Vector as the Vectors move around from area to area, grabbing more and more Luminite. Dogs are finally going to start attacking this Starforge. It's going to still take them quite a little bit in order to chew this thing down because it does have natural healing. And I think we actually did get, it says it's primed. Unit production by structure of the same type will spawn here and obey. Oh, okay, that's just talking about the rally. I'm not worried about that then. The Starforge is finally going to get taken out. That's going to end the first part of the rush for the Celestial faction, but he's probably going to transition over to another Starforge or over to a couple more units here in a bit. It does look like he's moved into Curie once again. He needs to get some of these early kills off in order to justify his build, because I still think late game this favors Mixu very much. So if CaptinAlex cannot get the kills that he needs early on, then he's gonna have a hard time dealing with Mixu. One Vector does get taken out by a couple of the dogs. The blink forward does happen, but they're just not able to keep up with the dogs. The dogs are just that fast and just able to avoid the Vectors altogether. Curies are lagging behind just a little bit to try to catch up with these Vectors, and Vectors actually finding some purchase, killing a couple of the Bobs, killing a couple of the dogs. This is what CaptinAlex needs. He needs to disrupt this infrastructure. He needs to slow down his opponent, and that's very much so what he is doing right now. He's taking out Bob after Bob. Sure, he's lost a good chunk of forces, but the Curies are also here for the reinforcements, killing more and more of the Bobs, slowing down Mixu even more, hurting Mixu's economy right where he needs it. He just popped up this expansion, and he's gonna lose it just as quickly. So far there's no response from Mixu. He blew most of his units, and I think that's it. That is the GG. Mixu deciding to give round 2 to CaptinAlex. The aggression was just too much for him to deal with. Join me in round number 3, Commander. I'll see you there. Welcome, Commander, to Titan's Causeway. We are in round 3 between Mixu and CaptinAlex. Mixu now switching over to the blue, maintaining his Vanguard, and now in the red we have CaptinAlex maintaining his Celestial. Our score is 1-1 with each player taking a respective round. The build so far for CaptinAlex does seem to be the same. Morph Core into Starforge into Vector Spam, hoping that he can kill Mixu before Mixu builds into his Hedgehog and Vulcan, because we have not seen Celestial do too well into that. However, just in general, Mixu has done very well against all of his opponents. Sort of testing their new strategies, testing the abilities that they're using and the builds that they are currently using. This is a slightly larger map. No, this might actually be the same map as the previous one. As far as distance, Vectors are still relatively close to this health tower, but I think Mixu has started taking the health tower before these Vectors can really get here. It'll still remain to be seen, and there's still a bunch of these slime left starting to do their damage, but I think they might get it done just in time for the Vector to just miss it. Another dog joins the reinforcement, or just joins the forces of Mixus over here, and he does end up grabbing that tower right on time. There is the Vector trying to sweep in and grab what it can, but the blink forward happens, and actually he's going for the weakened Lancer. Not a bad call, but the Lancer grabs the flower just in time. This Vector is now in a bad spot. He was in a good spot beforehand with that Lancer almost dead, but now is not the case. Mixu proving to be particularly nasty with his dogs, and still doing a very good job with his Lancer. His Lancer seems to be going off, maybe to do some scouting here or there. Either way, CaptinAlex has started his assault on his opponent's base. I'm not sure he has the forces yet to deal with any of this. I'm not sure he has built... no, he has another Vector building. I'm not sure why it's going all the way over there. That's probably a misclick. That's gotta be a misclick. I don't know why the Vectors are heading up there. Vectors are going to go for the speed tower in the south. That'll be useful for them for moving back and forward and catching up with these dogs and maintaining speed with these dogs. Vectors are going to get the blink forward and kill one of the dogs almost for free, grab a flower on their way out, and then grab that movement speed. Vector in the north doing the exact same thing. Maybe that's the point of that original rally point, was to grab get a Vector up there to take that speed buff so he can hop back in between them. And it looks like they're going to move forward and take the health tower from Mixu. Mixu losing dogs left and right, not able to transition just quite yet into his hedgehogs. He does get a biokinetics lab up and is working on his upgrade for his dogs, getting that plus 16 damage for his dogs to the light units, which the Vectors are considered light units, so that'll help them in the early part of this match. I don't think it'll help them in this engagement coming up right here, because that upgrade is still progressing down here and it's not even halfway just yet, but it may not matter between all of the Bobs and all of the dogs cornering all of these Vectors. They may not need the upgrade. There are 3 blinks out of the 5 that are here, and the Vectors actually managed to make it out intact, alive, as it seems. They're gonna circle around over to the health tower and begin their assault anew, but if they're not careful, these dogs are gonna do even more damage here in just a minute. That upgrade is almost complete, and I know that CaptinAlex saw the biokinetics lab of his opponent, but maybe he can, maybe Mixu lucks out and he doesn't know the Vanguard faction that well. He doesn't know that they have that upgrade. I highly doubt it with how skilled these players are. They've at least done research, even if they haven't played those particular factions or dove into them particularly hard. And I don't, it looks like we're still just producing Vectors for CaptinAlex. He's got 5 so far built up, but the dogs are here with their upgrades, and they're going to be able to catch up to the forces, to the Vectors of CaptinAlex. They have decided to grab this speed tower that's going to be useful in grabbing. And no, actually, there's a Vector that gets caught out here. He is in the wrong neighborhood, and the dogs actually decide to give up the pursuit, maybe thinking that there's more units over there than they can see, because they don't know the Vectors are in the north. Since they have Fog of War, they can't see their opponent. They do finally discover the Starforge. I'm not sure if they're going to decide to take it out. They are going to run back to the speed tower, and no, actually, they're going to leave the Starforge entirely alone. All of the forces of CaptinAlex have moved back to his base, possibly anticipating some sort of assault. This is a lot of dogs here. They can do a good chunk of damage to both the Curie and the Vector, since both of those units are considered light units. But the fight does not happen. Another speed tower is going to get taken and give those dogs just a little bit more oomph, give them a little bit more speed. Unfortunately, the Lancers are not going to get it, but I'm not sure it matters right now. And speed-wise, it looks like Mixu's got almost every tower on the map. His opponent is slowly starting to retake some of them and start taking more on his ends, but right now, map controls wise, Mixu is doing a very, very good job of not only controlling the map, not only patrolling the map, but doing a very good job of taking these camps and taking all of these mini objectives. Dog's gonna poke in and out, doing a little bit of harassment, doing a little bit of poking around, and oh no, actually they're gonna try to get a surround on the dogs with the Vectors. Vectors doing a great job with their blink forward, getting 2 dogs for free, and then running down and grabbing their speed buff. Mixu's gonna need more dogs in order to fight this combination of troops. He actually does the sell off of the biokinetics labs and builds another barracks instead. He's got 3 barracks that I missed early on. And we do actually have our first true engagement over here between vectors and all of these dogs. They're going to do a significant amount of damage to all of these dogs and actually take out the sentry post, but at the cost of many of their compatriots. A good chunk of them get taken out here. There are only 4 vectors out of the original that was here. There are still a good chunk of Kree, and these Lancers are in a bad spot. Still not able to get any kills on top of these vectors, but these vectors are still very, very hurt. The only thing that's really left is Bobs and a couple of dogs here to do this. So this is CaptinAlex's chance to disrupt the line of his opponent, to start going after his backline, start going after his Bobs, and I believe he has already used his one-click, his ability for the Bob overcharge, so a good chunk of these Bobs are just going to take damage for free as the Curie and Vectors move forward. Bobs are starting to repair each other to buy themselves some time for the dogs and Lancers to deal more and more damage. CaptinAlex has lost all of his Vectors, but these Curies are still here to disrupt the lines of Mixu and to stay absolutely over here. Most of the units have started to repair themselves, which gives them time to take out the Curies. There's only a handful of Curies left, but either way, the economy has been disrupted for Mixu. I'm not sure if the cost is worth the reward. CaptinAlex lost most of his forces. He is finally starting to rebuild them, and it looks like just primarily Curie this time around. No vectors, so maybe we're gonna see a different build, a different army composition from Mixu here in a minute. Still so far just mass Curie, unless his goal is to just do crazy amounts of Curie, because it does look like Mixu has changed his build. He's not getting the hedgehogs out, at least as soon as I normally see him. He's just sort of sticking with the dogs and the Lancers. No exos or anything like that, just pure dogs and Lancers. Everybody's still posturing, still floating around, building up their bio balls. They both have to lick their wounds, and this old main base of Mixu has lost the majority of its Bobs. I'm sure a good chunk of them transported to over here, and so he's still got all of these guys building, but that's gotta hurt. Here we go. We do get a good wall off over here for his base, but he sells it just as quickly as he put it in order to leave a space for units to move in and out there. He actually blocked himself in, and maybe that's what he was not wanting to do. Curies are going to start surrounding these Lancers, and the Lancers are going to start getting taken out here in a minute, but the dogs are here to support them and start taking out Curies left and right, and the Curies do not have the upgrade to move while they are in the process of exploding. And I actually didn't realize the Repair-O-Matic can repair the dogs. That seems a little silly to me. Are the dogs supposed to be like cyber dogs? Is that the thing? Maybe I need to find some concept art of the dogs. I just thought they were just regular good boy doggos, but I guess that would be a little weird for a sci-fi game to just have normal dogs. So maybe they are some sort of cybernetic dog. Some of the upgrades here do definitely look cybernetic in nature, so I guess that would make sense. Actually, it says light mechanical unit, so I guess they are cyber dogs. I thought they were normal dogs this entire time. Another Curie gets taken out for a dog, but a good boy gets down for it just in time. Dogs get a good scouting of their opponent's base, seeing the 2 Legion halls, seeing the 2 creation chambers, so they now know what he is up to. He probably could have already guessed before based off of all of these Curies. Curies do the best they can to keep with the dogs, but I think the dogs are still just slightly faster, so he's not able to grab it. This is primarily the sharking phase. Both players are trying very hard to figure out what their opponent is up to, figure out what their weakness is, because everything is on the line. We do get our first new unit for Mixu, and he's decided to go for the tried and true Vulcan. No hedgehogs this time, but grabbing that Vulcan. I'm not sure how the Vulcan does into the Curie. I gotta imagine as long as it's stationary and the longer it shoots, the better and better it's gonna do, obviously. But I guess he can dash out of the way when the Curies explode unless they get that upgrade. I'm really not familiar with this faction with Celestial, so I don't know what their upgrade building is. to keep an eye out for. Vanguard, I'm more familiar with them. I play a bit of co-op with that faction, so I'm a little bit more familiar with what their build orders are and what they can get away with. Celestial, I have no idea. Infernal, I've got a decent idea. And we're going to get a little bit of assault here between the Curies and the dogs, and two Cyber Boys are going to get taken down extremely unceremoniously, and the Curies are not going to lose anything for it. And in fact, they might actually benefit and be able to get to these bruisers, but they decided to speed their way over to the dogs and taking the speed buff so they can keep up with the dogs when they need to. So far, this looks like the one and only Vulcan. And actually, we're going to get some Hornets over here by Mixu. Mixu mixing it up once again with his build, going mass dogs, Hornets, and grabbing a Vulcan. The assault has begun. Curious have moved their way in, and they've started their assault, and the Hornets have been revealed to to CaptinAlex. CaptinAlex not having an answer to them. He doesn't have any Argents. He doesn't have anything to deal with those right now. He just primarily has these Curie working on the tower to get some of the secondary resources as Mixu's two Hornets begin to move their way in to start taking out some of these prisons. There's nothing really to stop them. Killing those prisons will be super great. There goes one down for free. Hornets are continuing their assault. There goes two down. That is two prisms down. That's extremely unfortunate. And the longer these prisms run, the faster they are going to move, up to 300% of their base speed. But these Hornets are just going to keep taking them out. They might as well be glass in the sky, because that's what's happening. Every single shot is just killing one left and right. There is the one click, and actually we get a transition of Archangels into the Hornets. I have no idea how the Archangels deal with the Hornets whatsoever. Obviously they can fly and just whack them with their big hammer, and one Hornet does get taken down, but after Mixu finds super great purchase in that, able to take out prism after prism, severely hurting the economy of his opponent. But this entire time, his opponent was building these Archangels. It's very exciting to see the different builds from these different players. This is very much a new game for everyone, so seeing the ways everything interacts, this is really some of the first time we're going to get to see this kind of content where we're going to see how these puzzle pieces fit into each other and with each other. Bombs are actually going to get pounced on here by the Archangels, and they don't actually manage to get one. Nope, they get a whole one Bob so far as an Archangel starts the sky battle against the Hornets, but this Archangel is outnumbered. If he's not careful, he's going to be taken out. He's going to pounce down on the ground just before he dies. Another Archangel is going to join the fight. There were three. There are now two Archangels left, and they're continuing to poke and prod at these Hornets, but Hornets are going to give chase on top of their opponent, and it actually looks like CaptinAlex is the lesser for this. No, actually, he has a lot more Curie than I thought. I'm not sure where the Bobs went. Bobs are actually fighting a Curie. I didn't see that. They have the overcharge ability, so they're a bit tankier, and they do finally push out the majority of the forces of their opponent, but I think the Curies are going to try to suicide their way on top of these Bobs. Even if they don't get the kills on the Bobs, just disrupting this line will be absolutely massive. There are two Curies taking Time Bomb, going forward and actually killing a couple of these Bobs and disrupting the line of Mixu. Mixu going into Mass Hornet, and still not much of an answer from CaptinAlex. I think this might actually be all but over. These Hornets are just not dealt with. Like there's nothing to deal with. Nope, actually we're switching over into Argents and Archangels to fight the Mass Hornets. I feel like Mixu missed his opportunity a little bit there, but then again, he has no idea what is in his opponent's base, so that's easy to say from our side, from the casting chair. Hornets poking and prodding to see what towers they can get for free, what flowers they can eat, and what they can snack on. And there's still not much in the force department, not much of a response from Alex, and if he's not careful, he's going to lose more prisms here in a second. There goes another three prisms down. That's got to hurt. And there it is. There is the GG from CaptinAlex. CaptinAlex cannot deal with the Hornets from Mixu, giving Mixu yet another point in this round. We are now moving into round number 4, Commander. I will see you there. round number 5 of the grand finals between CaptinAlex and Mixu. We are on Jagged Maw, this time around a significantly smaller map, a map that I would argue favors the rush tactics of CaptinAlex. CaptinAlex switching to the blue and Mixu switching to the red, both players maintaining their current factions. Here we go. Morph Core is already moving its way in, wanting to set up right on the front doorstep of his opponent. He's going for these trees right here and probably going to set up his building in this little section so they can travel through when he can. No? I don't know where he is going with the Morph Core for this moment. Dog's going to continue to be annoying, just searching around, trying to look for where that Morph Core is going to set up. There it is. Starforge is out, and we're going to start seeing some vectors here any moment now. It will be very interesting to see what Mixu decides to do in order to get ready for these vectors. He knows that they are coming, and he has to have an appropriate plan for it. For the time being, he's going for these slimes, but that is meeting the time frame that these vectors seem to want. They seem to want to show up at that tower right when the slimes are getting taken out. And actually some bobs are moving their way over here to set up a sentry post for Mixu to give them this tower right here to try and help them do that. There is the first sentry and our first vector, and he takes out a Lancer. That's extremely devastating for Mixu to lose early on. Losing that Lancer is got to hurt. The building of the sentry post is continuing, but that also means that those two bobs aren't helping with the economy of his opponent. But there goes the vector, so I guess it all worked out in the end. There's the repair on the dogs to fight more and more of these vectors. That's an interesting strategy to switch into. Mixu moving the bobs forward in order to delay this assault, and it does actually seem to have worked pretty well. Jagged Maw still very much, like I said beforehand, favors Captain Alex over Mixu seeming to do much better with his mid to late game builds than CaptinAlex. So I still really like this dynamic of this fight where we've got this very much so early game build where we have these vectors and maybe some Curies. And last game we got to see some Archangels mix it up into all of that craziness. So it'll be really interesting to see what comes up with here. The vectors are looking to actually grab some shots on the bobs, but the bobs will still have the ability of the one click. There it is. They have that additional armor, but this entire time that they're doing this, it means that they are no longer harvesting that resource. Another bob gets taken out as the vectors continue to kite around. They kill a dog and they continue their harassment on top of the bobs. Bob switching over to building a sentry post, but I'm not sure how much it's going to matter as bob after bob continues to fall down and more vectors join this assault. Sentry post does pop down when one of the bobs pops into it. The blink has come out for the vectors, at least for two of them, and the vectors have decided to sandwich their way over here, it looks like. I guess they could be running back towards the health tower to repair, but I think they are valuing the damage on these bobs more than anything else. Disrupting all of that could make a pretty big difference. We are now up to 5 vectors. It's not looking super great for Mixu. That building being that close and being able to build that quickly is going to start biting him in the butt. Lancer pops into the sentry tower, getting a buzz cannon out, starting to take out a whole bunch of these vectors. One vector, at the very least, does get taken out, leaving only 4, but they have captured the tower and got what they wanted, which is the repair. Bob in sort of a bad spot over here, and actually he makes it into the sentry in time in order to heal up, in order to avoid that damage. But the forces of Mixu are very much so anemic, and his economy has got to be hurting compared to his opponent. Bob's going to continue to get targeted down. There goes the final Bob over here on this front line as the Lancer pops into the sentry post in order to get some free shots off on these vectors. The vectors are just going to back off as soon as that pops up. And there it is. There is the GG already. Mixu not wanting to play with us, thinking that he can win in the next round. We'll get to see that and where it unfolds in match number 5, round 5 of the grand finals. I'll see you there, Commander. Welcome to Boneyard, Commander. This is the final round, the final match of the grand finals. Whoever comes out on top of this wins the whole thing. This is a much larger map. We are on Boneyard, so the rush tactics will be nowhere near as effective as they were on Jagged Maw. This is a night and day difference map-wise, so this sort of puts the build of CaptinAlex at least a little bit of a disadvantage. This travel time is going to make more and more opportunities for Mixu to build up his forces and move into that mid to late game, which seems to favor him so much. Even when, not the previous game, but the game before that, in match number 3, we did get to see Mixu change up his build just a little bit. Mixu deciding to grab some Hornets and using them to very great effect, taking out the prisms of the Celestial faction of CaptinAlex. His opener here will be very important. There is our first habitat. There is our first barrack. Getting ready to start taking out the health tower of them. He knows that those vectors are coming. He saw it. I guess the vectors have to blink off in order to get out of this little area here. I guess that's not too big of a deal, but that doesn't mean that their blink is not going to be available right early on. And they're also not going to be available to show up at this health tower right when CaptinAlex prefers to. Yeah, so the first health tower does officially go to Mixu. He's not really contested there, and it looks like these vectors are just running primarily back to their own base. Maybe they're trying to get their own health tower and build up some time. If that's the case, then I'm not sure what the point of putting the vectors all the way over there if you're not going to use them to be aggressive early on. Sort of a strange tactic here from CaptinAlex, but once again, that's easy to say from the caster's chair. Hindsight's 2020. I'm not having to do, 850 API or APM, I'm just have to watch and commentate and think about everything that's happening right here. And actually, Mixu is going to be the one that's going to be aggressive, moving into the natural expansion of his opponent, going for his opponent's health tower. He's not wanting to take this one lying down and is going to try to be a pest this time, and it does look like he gets the final shot on that slime, on that creep for it. With a couple of these vectors still left, vectors are starting to whittle down a little bit HP each time, but the damage is split up very much so, and the dog gets taken out, and this Lancer, this secondary Lancer, is soon to follow. More and more vectors are popping up for CaptinAlex over there. That's looking great for him, especially if he can take out, yep, there goes that last Lancer. That means the forces of Mixu are going to be all the weaker early on in game. He does sure have a good number of dogs, but those dogs aren't going to be able to do anything about the Starforge up on there. They need some sort of boost to make it up there, and the numbers for the vectors continue to grow and grow. It looks like he's deciding to go for this tower here. He's trying to get this Luminite tower and go for a little bit of early cash. Also for getting the camps as well. Neither player really wanting to commit to a big fight yet. Everybody's just sort of doing their build-up. They're going to start poking around each other here in a minute, trying to find some weak spots, I have to imagine. Mixu tried that earlier on the natural expansion and was able to actually steal away that last camp kill from CaptinAlex, at least from what I could tell on my end. CaptinAlex ultimately did end up taking the tower, but that was after he lost that. Vector is going to get a little bit of a scouting out, and they're going to move into the natural expansion of Mixu. It's Dog versus Vector, and I believe the favor is very much so in the Vectors. Vectors are going to pop forward while the Dogs get some healing from the healing tower, get a drive-by heal, and if these Vectors are not careful, they're going to get caught, and they're going to get destroyed by the Dogs. And I got to imagine here, actually, the Dogs already have their upgrade. They already have their claws, which means they're going to do even more damage to the Vectors, and Vectors jumping out very last minute to the safety of this upper area for them. But that also means that the Dogs are going to split up and start moving into their opponent's base. It looks like we actually have 2 arc ships this time around for Mixu. He doesn't normally, at least from what I've seen, doesn't normally seem to grab 2 arc ships. Dogs going for the power bank and are going to get it in and out. That is the result of these Vectors being chased out of the low ground into the high ground. They are finally back there, but that also means that they are not going to have their blink available for this next fight. But it may not matter because the dogs are still a ways away. They're still outside of the base of Mixu. That means that these bobs are vulnerable. However, we do actually get a single hedgehog here. No one click for the bobs. The bobs are still going to get taken out. That's extremely unfortunate for Mixu as the dogs move in. And there is one blink. There is two blinks for the vectors. There's three blinks for the vectors. Vectors are in a really bad spot trying to take this tower, but not quite able to get it. One vector does get out. Three vectors do make it out of that salt, but for the most part, at least army-wise, at least military-wise, Mixu comes out on top on that engagement. A good chunk of the bobs have died, and it looks like Mixu's answer to this problem, to this vector problem, is to get these hedgehogs out sooner rather than later. Bob's also building up a wall to start protecting this area, and it already comes in handy as another vector gets taken down. The dog and hedgehog combo seems to work really, really well against this vector combination. There is one blink from one of the vectors, and I'm assuming these other two vectors are probably going to blink back up there to safety. There goes one, and they're going to get some pot shots from up above. However, the hedgehogs can fire up. The dogs may not have any missiles or rockets. They just have some bork bork nom noms, but they don't have anything to fire up. I guess that would be a little bit ludicrous, but come on, you can't tell me that a Gatling gun on the back of a Cyberdog upgrade wouldn't be awesome to see, especially if the Gatling gun fired and moved the dog backwards every time it fired. You can't tell me you would not laugh at that every single time. I know I definitely would. Either way, it'd probably be just a little bit too powerful. The deployment of the hedgehogs are going to pop out to try to get some of these prisms. That'll be great if they can get those kills early on. That's going to hurt the economy of their opponent. Unfortunately, it is not enough, but they are going to be able to set up here, and they are going to sort of force a fight with these vectors, because otherwise these prisms are not going to be able to farm. Hedgehog setting back up to hit the prisms once again, going into that siege mode. CaptinAlex not seeing it coming, and it looks like Mixu's coming out on top of this. He got the two prisms, he got the two vectors, and most importantly, he's entirely stopping his opponent from harvesting his secondary natural expansion, which means Mixu's going to have an economic advantage that's only going to increase as the game moves forward. Two arc ships are moving to start this assault and start picking on some of these units to maybe aid their vectors, but I'm not sure if they will make it there quite in time. It actually looks like one of the hedgehogs unfortunately gets stuck behind a whole bunch of the minions. That's extremely unfortunate for Mixu. Losing that hedgehog has got to absolutely sting. That is extremely unfortunate. There is a small silver lining though, because these slimes are going to attack the prisms and get a couple of decent shots off, and it looks like Mixu just barely misses the prisms. He doesn't see them make their way down to this luminite. However, what he does see two vectors almost killing both of them, leaving another one at 8 HP, and Mixu's decided to move back into his opponent's natural expansion, preventing him from harvesting anything that is over there. That's why CaptinAlex has decided to go for that luminite, because his current base is under assault. And if CaptinAlex is not careful, he may actually lose an arc ship. I know he has two right now, but losing an arc ship has got to absolutely bite. The forces for CaptinAlex continue to get whittled down moment by moment. He loses vector after vector. He needs to transition into something else, or at least be able to group his units. He's just not finding any purchase whatsoever. Everywhere he goes, there is Mixu. Speaking of Mixu, Mixu is starting to take out the arc ship. There is a dead arc ship, and that is the GG. Mixu winning the game extremely, extremely unceremoniously, giving him the victory, giving him the gold in this grand final. Thank you for tuning in, Commander. I have been your host, Korak. Transmission out.